Just want to say welcome to everyone and ask you if you can keep your microphones on mute until there's time for questions. And this is being recorded. There will be some time after the 30-minute session that will not be recorded when people can ask questions if they don't feel comfortable being recorded. So today's artist is Amado Alfadni, and he is going to be talking to us from Cairo. And he is a Sudanese Egyptian artist who was born in Cairo, and he lives there now. And he's going to talk to us a bit about some of his recent work and how he's developed the work in a research process. So Amado, would you like to say hello?
Oh yeah, hello to everybody. Hope that you can hear me.
So should we go ahead and begin the PowerPoint? I think that way it's a little bit easier if we have some visuals. So I'm just going to switch to that. Here we go. And okay. And then I'll just, so I hope everyone can see the screen now. So Amado, I thought maybe we could begin. You can introduce a little bit your first project-based work that was marked a change in how your process established itself, because before you were primarily working with photography, with painting, and then
Painting,
with painting, and then later on you started working with installation, photography, sound, video, all different kinds of works. So I think this marks a significant change. So I'm going to mute my microphone, and maybe you can begin your talk.
Okay. Like as you said, like I was born and raised in Cairo, but I originally from Sudan. My family are from Sudan, and I was working as a painter until like 2011, since the revolution started, like in Egypt, because that's I live around the square, Tahrir Square, so I was part of what's going on there, and it took me like a year or two to decide like I want to do something else, because I couldn't really present myself, or or I couldn't really present what I want to say in the painting. So I was looking for a different medium, and then I did interactive work with our president. And I would like to start with the Black Holocaust Museum, because that's the first research project I did, and it was in 2016. And it was based on the first concentration camp. It was done by the Second Reich, and it was happening in Africa, like especially in Namibia. So the project was like building like an interactive Holocaust museum in Cairo, and it was about the memory of the Shark Camp Island, which is like Shark Island Camp, concentration camp, which was built in 1904, and it was built by Eugen Fischer, against the founder of the concentration camps in Europe. And then, if you move to the second image, yeah. And here is like the project I want to talk about, which is like the Black Ivory. So, like I said, like I'm from Sudan, and I was raised here, and I was going to Egyptian public school, and history was an issue for me the whole time. Like I was in school, like when it comes to like African history in Egypt, or Egyptian Sudanese history, is really complicated, and I was not really happy with it, because it was just like being told like students are not really maintained well as soldiers, so they're not fighting well, and they're not really doing good for the Egyptian Empire. But
Can I stop you for a second? Can I stop you for there, because I just want to I want to emphasize that point that you were talking about when you were in school and learning about Sudanese. Like, you know, you're coming from the perspective of your family is Sudanese, but you were born and raised in Cairo, And so you're talking about your education, how people perceived the Sudanese, correct? You're talking about that
Yeah, exactly.
case.
Yeah, and especially like the era of like Muhammad Ali, the founder of New Egypt, uh, because um, yeah, the history book, my textbook says like he tried to form like an army from Sudan. That's why he opened Sudan or conquered Sudan, and it didn't work out. But it didn't say the reason. But when I did my research, I found out the reason was like he took like almost like 500,000 like enslaved children from Sudan in 1 year, and only like around 25,000 made it to Egypt, and the rest of the 500,000 they died in the desert because they had to walk for 40 days in the desert. But that's not on the textbook. So
So this is similar to, like, for instance, something like in the US we might compare that to the march, when they marched, the Native Americans, and so many died. And I mean, we're really talking about some similar aspects of colonial kind of attitudes and repression and exploitation, correct? This is what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same. I guess it's the same everywhere. But like for us here, like because I mean, the Middle East or North Africa is different because when you talk about slavery and racism, it's not a topic you can talk about because it's out of discussion. Like nobody wants to talk about it. Actually, everybody's denying it, which actually is not true. So like bringing this topic here is different. Like because what I'm trying to talk about, my work is not about the European African slavery. I'm talking about like the African slavery here. So I guess the Egypt and Sudan have really long history of of slavery because it's old. It's like an old as an even kingdom. So we talk about like maybe 3,000 years old trade was happening around the Nile. Uh, so yeah, this is something that I really feel like I really want to talk about it, and it was not easy topic to talk about here or to present it here as well in Egypt. So I didn't know where to start my project or this research, and I found this image, which is about the Sudanese troop in Mexico. Just make it short, brief about it. It was in it was like in 1864. There were Sudanese troops who sent to the French army to fight in Mexico as a present from the Egyptian king. So the Egyptian king or Khatib sent like 500 Sudanese soldiers or enslaved soldiers to Mexico to fight for the French army. And I had a problem here in this time because in the previous project I was working with the documents that I found in like was coming from the colonial perspective, like either from Germany or from yeah, basically from Germany. And here I was like also working the same document, like I'm working with Egyptian documents, which actually coming from the colonial side. So I was didn't want to work with the document that I had, so I was looking for something else to build my story from or to build my archive. And then I found an interview with one of these soldiers who were there in this war, and it was published like in War magazine in like 1902. And based on the interview with this guy, I just built my research, like the way he was talking about how he was treating the army, he was talking about the British army, the Egyptian army, and his war. And by the way, this guy I was talking about, Ali Jifun, who was really Chuluk, and who was kidnapped when he was 7 years old from Sudan, and was sent to Egypt. He was fighting in three different colonial war armies. He was fighting for the British and the French and the Egyptian as well. So we
Um,
can,
so do you want to go on to see some of the more of the slides?
yeah,
Do you want to show?
yeah, we go.
Do you want to? I have the clip queued up for the video, with Black Ivory. Do you want me to show that now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, maybe we can. Maybe we can do the clip first, and then we do the images
Okay.
from
So
the speed. Yeah,
I
yeah.
just have to stop the share for a moment and pull that. Oops, sorry. One moment. And do the share again. And this one. And I make it bigger. Okay, so, okay.
Kabang tiang manut. What tiang golon? Dega tiang maya bata akeliet. Madog podwan. Kaya ko kanya ba wo be short. Kaya gogdi echa dog podwan. Yaga pona kerlen. Okanya anyualian e maikewi ba be short. Dugun ya koling. Ko komane ba komatek. Jinyag lin. Lin ma wen. Awur mo makso makit banyag lin. ATM to. Ja mo ga la nya kalgan. De gen dora ko bun. Pin ba wen. O chiga bed.
In the project, if I were
Okay, so let me just go out of that screen and sorry. And so yeah, so do you want to explain a little bit about what we just saw?
Oh yeah, that's what the installation, and it was called the Black Ivory, and the Black Ivory actually it was called the British used and the Egyptian as well for slaves, because when I was seeing the telegrams or the the post going between Sudan and Egypt and also UK, they were referring to slaves as Black Ivory because they couldn't really see it. So say that. So they always talk about like bringing Black Ivory. So it was a code for using enslaved soldiers. And in the installation, you found like five like ivories, like black, they all painted black. And from this five, that actually the map, like the one to floor as a map, and that the way that once you walk through them, that the voice comes out of it. So you hear the voice comes out of the task. And like I said, like I built the story, I tried to find the research and the way he was talking about history, because the way he was talking about Ali Jifun, like the guy, he was talking about like the facts about how they were treated, how not not allowed to keep the children, the Egyptian army, how they were switching the wives, how they were served until they die. There's no retirement for them, and all around. And then he was talking about like being kidnapped by hyena, for example. And then I was really trying to be like, I didn't know at that point, like which part of his talk should I take, like take out? Like, should I talk about the hyenas and cannibals, or I just keep the whole thing? And who am I to censor his point of view of history? So I just did everything at the way it was, and I start to build it, and then I build the story from first perspective, and then I had a problem with the language, which I didn't know which language should I use it for this project, because I didn't want to use either Arabic or English because it was coming from the colonial power. So I was looking for somebody who speaks his native language, and it was a Shilluk. And so I did the interview in Shilluk language, and I found somebody from the Shilluk community to read the whole thing for me. Yeah.
So the language that you're talking about that we just heard, this is a rare language. Is this what you're saying? So this is a language that it wasn't so easy to find somebody that could speak it and help you as an interpreter, right? That's what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay. Do we want to show now more of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can show them. Yeah.
sorry, could you see it before, or was there a problem? You didn't see it?
No, I didn't see it.
Ah, okay. All right, because you didn't start speaking, so okay. I'll try again. Okay, you want to start?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's from the Black Ivory, and then you can see the trunk. Yeah, but like we can move after. Okay, that's here from the Ace of Spade. Um, so this collection I started afterwards, and these images that they were my archive that I was collecting for the project. Um, so after the Black Ivory, I want to represent the images of that I have, and the idea is like how to represent them again. You know, like so I was really taking like, if I can say, the most powerful images and trying to put them more in iconic way. So if you can move forward to the next one, yeah. And I was collecting images from like the black soldiers in general, like, and this is like, for example, from the US, like from Civil War. And I'm trying to represent them in an iconic way. So I'm like trying to build like an icon. So can you do that again? Yeah. Here, like also another image, and I was playing with different techniques like photo transfer, and I was like putting image on top of another image, you know, on the paper, and then using the monoprint to play with the background. Like, for example, in the background of this image, you can find the names of the enslaved soldiers that were in Mexico, in Mexican War. So I was using layers together. Yeah.
I'm sorry because we don't hear you as well now. Maybe you can talk a little bit louder. I think the connection is not as good now. Do you
Oh
want to
yeah.
go to the next image?
Okay. Yeah, also like the previous one I was talking about, I was saying that they were have in the background, there was like when using the technique of photo transfer, I just like make a collage on the paper. So like I'm just putting the images on top of each other, like layering them. So the first one was had names of the soldiers that were in Mexico. The second one, the one right now, is like a Sudanese, like a camel rider, and in the background actually is a freedom ticket. It was a freedom ticket for slaves in Egypt. So I was trying to mix all this data together, you know, and then with the painting on the top, which is like the mono printing. Yeah, and then like a couple of years ago, I started to work with the images again, like working in like a digital montage, and also like I have the images and I try to rebuild them again. Like I'm still working with them on the way that I try to just give them like I don't know, like a not a good presentation, but like like representing these images again, you know, not like just like another image from a textbook, but like an image of like somebody there. Like I'm trying to bring that up. Yeah.
Sorry, so I wanted to ask you a few more questions because here, you know, these works, I'm wondering how are they presented? Are they on a wall? Are they part of another, you know, because you've been working in this installation kind of based work prior to this series. And I was just wondering how are they presented? Because is this kind of going back more towards you know, the artwork as kind of icons, as kind of something like how a painting is perceived, or are they also part of installations?
The first group was like part of installation with the monoprint and for transfer. The second one, it's an ongoing project. It's a photo montage, but basically it's more like a print. So for the second part of it.
I'd like to go back a little bit, if you don't mind, and talk a little bit more about the Black Holocaust pieces. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Go back a little bit. I think because this, for me, when I first met you, this was a work that was pretty recent for you, and I'd like to talk about what this is about and how this installation worked. We have running out of time, so I want to make sure we have questions. I'm just wondering if you can talk about the idea. Tell us a little bit more about what it's about. Could you do that?
Hello, sorry.
Sorry, could you tell us a little bit more about that piece, the Black Holocaust Museum?
Yeah, the Black Holocaust. It was about the Herero tribe who were like lost. I mean, there was a genocide, a Holocaust. I mean, which term they can use because they are both political, but like it was Holocaust against like a Herero nation, which they lost like 85% of the nation, and so I had this information and I was trying to find an instruction of a Holocaust museum. So I did like a timeline. I made the first installation, and then I had images. But in this piece, I couldn't use the images because I couldn't really work with them because they were somehow how you call it, like it was really can say like messed up images a little bit, and I couldn't really use the image because the image was kind of people in the image were used as an object, as like using for like scientific like treatment, whatever. So I couldn't use the image in the same way. So in this piece, I asked a friend of mine who is like she's a poet, and she was writing description of the images, without having no information about the background of the images, but she was just writing about them. And then I use the description as the image itself. So you go to the installation and you found uh, like 3,000 piece of wood, like logs, like for the installation, I use like this 3,000 piece of wood, and they all marked and numbered, and they were symbolic, and they are presenting the 3,000 person they were in this concentration camp. So when I was trying to read about the Herero traditional religion, they have something called the holy fire, and the holy fire is like when somebody dies, like so to open the skies for him. So by the sunset, you have to make a holy fire. So you make a fire by the sunset, and then it opens the lights for him, so his soul can go to the sky. Otherwise, his soul will be trapped in the earth. So, but they have one condition that the person who burned the fire have to have the same name. So you have to be from the family. And when I was going to the record of the people or the prisoners or the victims at the camp, they had no names. They just had numbers because they had these numbers that they were wearing in the like neck, you know. So as long as the 3,000 have no names, so the holy fire will never be burned. So it was like the installation of like the 3,000 piece of wood, just presenting these 3,000 souls that will never be released. So I was trying to find like from the Herero himself, like what they have, to present it, because I want to understand the people that I'm talking about.
So, so what you're saying is basically the installation had 3,000 pieces of wood, and they were engraved with the serial numbers, the numbers that the German colonizers that they were using to record the tribes people, correct?
Yeah.
And so those were engraved on the wood. It's very interesting. I'm going to stop the share and open it to questions. There's some kind of feedback we're getting. I'm not sure from somebody's microphone, but we don't see your face anymore, Amado. We only hear your voice. I don't know if we can put it back on video or if that's your connection. Okay. So now if people have some questions, it would be a great time to ask them. Does anybody have any questions for Amado? Okay, I guess people are a little bit shy. So I'm just going to also show your website because I think this could be interesting to see a little bit. It's on there. We still have a little bit more time. And I'm just going to open it first. And sorry, just takes me a moment. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so this is what I wanted to show. Sorry, it was just taking a moment to open up. So let me just show it now. So I'm not sure how well you can see, but this is Amado's website. And these are the pictures that Amado was talking about. Can you hear me? You can hear, okay. So he was talking about how he had these images displayed, and then there were these descriptions of what the original photograph was. So it had this empty space. It gave you an opportunity to imagine what had been in the picture.
Because also like it's easier. I mean, it could be because the picture kind of really disturbing themselves. So just looking at it, that you don't really read them because it takes you like 2 seconds, and then you don't really want to deal with it. But actually, like either reading it or hearing it, that it gives you time to build the story, in your brain, in imagination, and then you can really see it again.
Yeah. And we still have a couple of minutes we could talk about. Also, I thought you might want to mention, because of course we're coming from different kind of backgrounds, and it might be hard for people to imagine what it's like politically where you are. And I think one of your poignant works about this kind of political situation is the work called "If I Were President." Do you think you could mention something about that?
It was poster series was like in 2012 and 2014 during the presidential election. It was that's it from the second one, and so I had it in two terms, like in 2012. So that actually you can see them. This yeah, you can keep this picture. Yeah, this is like the poster itself, and it's blank and says "If I were president," and then it says "If I were a female president," which actually in language is not right, but like to make female more like interacting with it. So the idea was like they were in the whole that on the whole city. I was trying to go away from the Tahrir Square and just put them around the city and see the interaction of the people. Uh, I had also like a website and a Facebook group, and then I had it as PDF, and people like they were taking the PDF and print it out, and the only condition or the only thing I was asking people to do is just give me like send me a photo of what happened, what people wrote. And actually it was really interesting because I did like three phases, and every time the direction of the video changes a lot. I mean, from the first one with the like a living candidates, and everybody's kind of like having, like a hope or a dream or thinking something gonna happen, and then the people writing things. and then afterwards it became more like kind of like a game, so people were more like not really optimistic about it. And then it gets really violent, and people's reaction. People talk about like burning or killing other people. So you can really see how the people in Cairo in general, like especially in Cairo, because like this was a project, but in Cairo mostly, how they really think of what's going the political situation, how it was working, and how they think of it, and how to think of what's going to them. And you can see in this one, yeah, this one you can see like the one in red is the new poster from 2014, and the one in black is from 2012.
Sorry, because it's kind of going in a loop automatically.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to make it
yeah.
stop doing that. But what I wanted to say about that is that what kind of surprised me was how many candidates you have, and how um, that can be so different than for instance in the US. We have our two parties. We also have independent, but it's not so much different kind of parties. And also, one thing about it is what you were saying about when you first did the poster, how let me see if I can get it to stop moving. Like here, at first you said the way that the words were written in Arabic, how women weren't writing on the poster. They weren't saying if I were president and writing, because of the language, the way language was. So I'm just going to go back here. It's doing this. So you want to tell about that a little bit, about the language, about the wording? Because you were saying about whether it was feminine or.
Oh yeah, when I first did the first group of posters, like the first edition, I printed like around like 200, and then I found like it's just say for a president, and then it was only like men interacting with it, and then I thought like maybe I can put this for women, like if we're a president, for a female president, like if we change the dynamic of the interaction, and actually it did, like once you have these two sentences, so I guess more female were interacting with the posters than the first round. So yeah, even we say, like I said, like the grammar is not correct, but like people visually have to see that the women they can have a part of it.
Great. Okay, so I guess it's almost time for us to wrap up. We've got about 5 more minutes. And so if anybody wants to ask a question now, it would be great. I'm going to turn off the recording so that people can feel a little more comfortable.